the former president and chairman of Nintendo from 1949 to 2005, has quite the controversial history.
Let's go!
We're talking about Hiroshi Yamauchi.
Yes.
When you're pronouncing Japanese words, you always do the vowels distinctly.
Yes.
So you don't say aonuma, it's aonuma.
Aonuma, yep.
Yeah.
It's the same way in Spanish. Greek is a little bit of a mixture of the two. You just have to know when to mix your vowels and when to not.
English is dumb.
Yep.
So
English is messed up.
Yamauchi inherited Nintendo from his grandfather. That's something that a lot of current Nintendo fans might not know or have forgotten, is that for a long time Nintendo has just passed down the family, the Yamauchi family.
Absolutely. Iwata was the first president that was not part of the family, isn't that correct?
Yeah.
So he was a big deal during Nintendo's formative years.
Yeah.
Made such an impact.
I mean, he was like pre-NES to GameCube-ish?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And he had his ups and downs, and he made some enemies along the way.
I know.
I saw an article about him entitled "The Iron Fist in the Silk Glove" or something like that. You know, he was a gentleman, of course. You know, he came from a long line of distinguished people, but he definitely didn't back down.
No.
And that's what we're going to talk about today.
Yeah, so I know one positive thing he did, that left a really good impression on everybody, is when he was retiring, he was offered a $10-ish million pension, and he refused it. And he said, I think the company can figure out better ways to use this.
Wow.
And giving it to me, so I thought that was very nice. But while he was in the company, he kept reminding me of Steve Jobs, you know? Like a good leader.
Right.
Company-wise, but like interrelationally, very strict, harsh, and everything. So something really interesting about him is that he personally proved what games could be released into the SNES's lifespan. So like every NES game that came out, he played, looked at, and said yes or no, it can come out on the system.
So he was the Nintendo seal of approval.
Yeah.
That is crazy.
Yeah, he probably, or it was on his ring.
Yeah.
So,
do it old school style. It's a wax seal.
Yeah. And it didn't really line up with what he said, because he would have this mantra that he would say, and that was, developers make the best games. Not like, I don't know, press or PR or marketing. Like, give the developers what they need to make what they want to make. However, he would just shut a bunch
if
of
it
them
wasn't
down.
good enough,
Yeah.
get rid of that.
So at that time, he was called tyrannical by people underneath him. Probably a lot of people getting their games rejected.
Yeah, I'm sure.
And the reason he did that, though, is he was wanting to avoid another gaming industry crash.
Yes.
Which happened with the Atari. So
Absolutely.
I mean, he felt like he was the person standing between the gaming industry and another crash. That's a lot of pressure to put on oneself.
It is. And I know, like you said, you know, saying that he's harsh. I know that I've seen articles from back in the day of when Sega started vamping up their advertising and Nintendo was staying pretty mellow. He was not happy with his PR guy, because he's like, Sega is making our stuff look out to be like toys. You need to get your act together, or it's gonna be you know, curtains for you, not, you know, physically, but job wise at least. So he's made some enemies outside of Nintendo as well. If we look back on that time span, we see that within there lies the CDI. And what happened was Nintendo had this deal with Sega to create the SNES CD. And, or sorry, not Sega, Sony.
Okay.
They were working together to make this new console. It's going to be exciting. Yes, this is pre-PlayStation. This is basically the Nintendo PlayStation. I believe that was one of the names given to it. And so Sony gets really excited about this, but Yamauchi was making other deals at the time.
It's just gross.
Because Sony was not yet in the console market, and so they didn't trust them to be very good partners. And so what they did is they went to a European company, Philips, and they had their own deal with them. So Sony comes out at the Consumer Electronics Show and they show off the SNES CD and they're like, yeah, it's going to be cool. And people are like, okay, that's cool. The next day, Nintendo shows off the Philips CDI.
That was dirty.
The very next day at that show, and it's like they completely went back on the deal with Sony.
I need to take another shower after hearing that story.
It's so bad. And then we look at Sony is now one of their main competitors.
Yeah.
And even though they've, differentiated that relationship, it's still competitors.
Oh my goodness.
And then the Philips CDI was the biggest hunk of junk that anybody knows about.
Yeah. The industry would be so different.
It would.
Like, Sony wouldn't be competing.
Yep.
And together, they'd probably wipe out Microsoft. Like,
Seriously.
Xbox wouldn't be what it is.
They might have had a 360 maybe, but the Xbox probably wouldn't have done as well because the PlayStation and the Xbox were competing so closely.
Yeah.
If it were just Nintendo and Sony against Microsoft, they wouldn't have had as much unique stuff.
Right.
So.
I bet they felt like such dummies when the PS2 was doing gangbusters.
They were like, we done something wrong.
So then another interesting little tidbit is after Yamauchi stopped individually approving each game, he tried a little different tactic for the Nintendo 64. He intentionally made the console very hard to develop games for, to keep out the lower quality third parties, make them stay away. He wanted to intimidate smaller companies from supporting his hardware with their games. So I think that's probably a tactic that has lived on, unfortunately. Finally, the Nintendo Switch is easy to develop from like 6 different interviews that I heard with indie developers. But I know that all the way up through the Wii U, it was kind of the black sheep in the gaming industry, whatever Nintendo's current console was.
Yeah, and it's difficult. It is a tactic where you say, I can't approve every game, therefore my way of getting around that is just to make it difficult for people. And is that a legit business practice? It's kind of sneaky, but it's kind of, it does the job. It's not good for the little guy, but quality-wise, you are going to keep your stuff more likely to be better stuff.
Yeah, and that reminds me, we have an upcoming episode next week where we're going to be talking about some newer Nintendo staff members, and they're actually doing a little bit of this individual game approving stuff. So we'll get to that. It'll be interesting to make those comparisons. But I think that's all we have on our Throwback Thursday today.
Yes, of Mr. Hiroshi Yamauchi.
Very interesting.
Very interesting fellow indeed.
Yes. And thanks for watching. Hope you enjoyed. Thanks for being part of the crew.
Don't forget to share this video with your friends. Share a little bit of history of Nintendo.
See you guys next time.
Signing out.